Rams defense. That's all y'all put in the waivers. Why is everybody on the Rams defense?
Their matchups is crazy the rest of the way.
The Rams defense?
First of all, they're playing Joe Flacco.
Man, I'm not. Joe Flacco gonna just dump the ball off.
I'm just saying they're playing the offense.
By the way.
Yeah. They play the offense that is not very exciting.
Yeah. If Joe Flacco is a quarterback the rest of the way, Jerome Ford could be a league winner easily. Like just catch it, because the only thing that he really hadn't been able to do, and he runs routes, is catching like 4 to 5 balls a game.
Kareem Hunt didn't practice. That means Pierre Strong would be the next guy up. Amari Cooper was hurt too. He got hurt last game.
Yeah, he came back in. He had some X-rays. They said it's just a contusion.
In fact, he got X-rays in himself.
The Rams have Cleveland, Baltimore, Washington, New Orleans, Giants. And this team got to win now. Who's Pittsburgh play? Pitt plays who?
Pittsburgh plays the Cardinals.
Yep.
Okay.
The best defense I feel this week is the Falcons. Other than your typical, usual suspects.
Yeah.
I've been stashing the Falcons for the last 2 weeks because of this week.
What about the Chargers?
Chargers are solid too, but the Chargers, they can just have these games where it's like,
like
what are you doing?
I mean, like the Patriots have just been
The only concern I have with the Patriots is if it was Mac Jones starting this week, I'd be like all in on the Chargers. But they're like practicing with Zappy now.
2 quarterbacks actually.
Yeah, Cunningham too. But Cunningham's a receiver. It's just the fact that now he's getting a full week to actually prepare as the starter.
Yeah, but Zappy sucks.
Last year he had some pretty okay games, right? He had like a 2-3 game streak where he was like,
I think he was like coming into games and he was just like YOLO and he
was YOLO. He was almost like Will Levis.
We want YOLO. We want YOLO.
I want the sacks.
Yeah, I remember when Mac Jones was like, "Let me cook." When he was on the sidelines, upset
last year.
like on the side.
Man, I know you loving this. I know you loving this shit.
Every second.
I know you're loving
this. Here I am, just trying to be myself. It's a crazy world, looking to find my place, and all they do is la 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 la. Here I am, just trying to run the race in the slow pace. All I'm trying to do is run, not win, and all they do is la 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 la. Mirror, mirror, tell me what is it about them? Living like it's their game.
Welcome to First to 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with 2-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, the season is over. Fantasy regular season is over. Now the playoffs are about to start. You guys are vets, have been here before. How do you guys feel about the number of teams you have in the playoffs? And then also, how do you feel about gearing up for the tourney?
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, I want to give a shout out to anyone who has made it. And no, not who's made it, who's been like multi and mass entering. Like if you have, let's draw the line at 25 plus teams. Like, man, give a pat on the back to yourself. Like, congratulate yourself. Like, pour up a drink. It's been a long season.
Yeah.
Like a long season. It always is. There's always something we got to deal with. COVID, injuries. There's always shenanigans that go on throughout the NFL season, just literal chaos, and we got to deal with that chaos. But managing 25 teams, I think a lot of people who kind of do a handful of teams, they think that those who like mass enter are just kind of randomly going through their teams and like do it very quickly, and basically like we're just throwing shit at a wall and hoping something sticks, or throwing darts in the dark, when really like it is like a meticulous grinding process for each individual team that you have and that you own. And I mean, it wears on you.
Yeah.
It wears on you. Bro, I'm tired. I'm tired. I got new gray hairs coming in. So, if you're out there managing more than 25 teams, like, props to you, because I don't think people understand how hard it is. That being said, yes, for these large field tournament type entries and type contests, we are definitely entering into the playoffs and what we call the money week phases.
Yes, sir.
So things do lighten up a little bit. This week was, waivers were a little bit more challenging in certain ways of trying to, project out the next 5 weeks essentially, or at least set yourself up for the next 5 weeks. Differentiate yourself from other teams that are going to be in the tournaments, because there's going to be a lot of like teams. How you want to construct your teams. Do we want 2 kickers? Do we want 2 defenses? Do we want a backup quarterback? Do I really want to drop this handcuff? What's Dalvin Cook? if Breece Hall were to go down, does Dalvin Cook really provide value? What does his matchups look like? Is he going to take over? And so trying to weigh just so many different things, as far as really doing a full audit of your roster. I mean, it's draining. Yeah. It's draining, but we made it. So, you asked, for the check-in and see how we're doing. All that being said, I think for me it's been a really, really good year. Everything, all things being said, I got hit with injuries early on, and I just, luckily hit a lot of late guys in the draft. We talked about it previously. Some of my higher owned players were guys, taken in the 15th round and later. That included 50% ownerships of Kyron and Puka, and then had quite a few Zach Mosses, and a lot of those guys were just allowed me to be able to get through the first few weeks, and then really start to kind of fill my team out. So from a number standpoint, man, I went in this year, and this will probably be my last year of really going in. I think I'm gonna pull back.
Oh man!
You heard me.
Oh man!
This year really wore on me, but I had, let's say, about 75 total teams, or maybe solo teams. 75 teams. Let's put it that way. 75 teams. 27 main event teams.
Oh my God!
Yeah, 27 main event teams. Yeah. And
That's
then I had, it was crazy.
I'm doing the math too.
Yeah. And then I had, I think 45, 48 football guys, fantasy pros, fantasy pro teams. And out of the 40, 45, 48, 45, some of those are maybe joint teams. 30 of those made the tournaments. Actually, I wrote this down.
Oh, that's pretty high.
Yeah, 30 of those made the tournaments. So that was yeah. Man, well, I got to
scorecard. It looks like a
well, not just a scorecard, because I got to go back and you go back and do waivers, and I gotta, because when you're doing waivers, in the FFPC, if you were the first or second seed, you automatically get a tournament berth. Yeah. So when I'm going back and doing waivers, and when I'm trying to decide who I want to add drop or how I want to plan for the next coming weeks, I circle those teams so I know specifically. That way I'm not having to kind of click back and forth. So I just have it. I have it all here. Yeah. So about 30 plus made the tournament, and I actually had, I think, 28 of those or 25 of those are already in the tournament.
Already
so first
in the
or second
tournament.
seed.
Yeah.
So 30 made the playoffs.
30 made the playoffs.
And then
25. Yeah, 25
made the tournament.
25 in the tournament. And then for the main event, I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back, because y'all know main event is hard as hell. So about 27 teams there, and about 19 are in the playoffs, and of that, 13 are already in the tournament.
Nice.
So that's just having the teams in the tournament. I mean, it affords you a lot. Obviously, we kind of we're talking off the air about. We still want to obviously win
the league.
The league, but the main goal, what I have my eyes set on is winning that winning the overall title. So this week is tough, man. There's a lot of teams on bye, so I'm having to make hard decisions as far as I don't feel comfortable dropping let's just say the likes of a Tajay Spears, or even a Kenneth Gainwell, because you just never know what's going to happen. So many guys who are just absolutely irrelevant and completely out of it. Yeah. If you're one injury removed from potentially being a league winner, there's no way I can drop you from my team. Yeah. So if a team is already in the tournament, there's some teams if you playing me in the playoffs, man, you may be fortunate, you may be going against a roster that doesn't have a quarterback. Yeah. Or you may be going against a roster that's
so you're just banking on just the tournament.
You know what? Just some guys I just don't want to drop. I got I have a Josh Allen 13-0 team, and and the quarterbacks that are available are just trash. It's absolute trash, and I'm man. There's no one that I can see dropping them, at least right now. I want to see how the next 2 weeks play out before having to make that decision. Because maybe somebody gets injured, and then it makes it a little bit easier. Maybe somebody comes back, and it makes it a little bit easier. Wallace somehow comes back recently, then I can drop a tight end potentially. But Right now, it's just like, these roster spots are so valuable. It's like 20 is not enough somehow.
Yeah. Dio, I know that you're a mass drafter as well. I don't expect you to give us the numbers like
Yeah,
that.
you know I'm not doing that.
The numbers.
but like, how has this season been for you? Like not. I mean, just generally speaking, like, was it as good as last year? Because I think last year, but you had a crazy.
Last year
run.
was good.
Yeah.
This year might have been a little better, actually.
Oh wow.
He had a
Yeah.
crazy
I
last year.
had a good
Yeah.
amount of teams that made the playoffs and good amount of teams that's in the tournament already. I mean more than like 70% of my teams
Oh, that's good.
like made the playoffs and like probably like a little over 50% made the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm comfortable in some extent knowing I have my tournament tickets, locked in already, and whatever happens these next 2 weeks in the playoffs are irrelevant in that manner. But with all that being said, I don't like the way Abby started his little talk just a second ago, man.
Why?
Because Abby was over there like, give yourself a pat on the back, like it's been a long season, like it sounded too like this finality to it,
Yeah,
and we ain't done yet.
Nah, no,
We're not done.
Here's
not
the
done.
thing, man. Like, I feel like this time, out of all the time in the season, you have to lock in the most. Like,
Yeah.
you have to really focus, like hyper focus, because this is when all this stuff really truly matters, in my opinion. And like Abby's saying, the season is a grind. Every week you have to stay on top of it. And there's people that it just eventually starts to burn them out, especially mass drafters, or even people that aren't mass drafters, people that probably have like one or two teams.
Yeah.
Just the grind of having to deal with this constantly. It's not first come first serve, free agent pickup. So you have to every week thinking about who you're going to put bids in for waivers, and that strategy, and you drop a player, you're not going to be able to pick them back up, and all of that jazz. Like, now that we got to this point, you got all these teams that kind of probably not paying attention. I have somebody right now that I'm playing against that they have somebody that's injured in their starting lineup. They made the playoffs. They have somebody that's injured, and they just left them in their lineup last week. And I'm like, a person like that, they're either not
That's
paying
crazy.
attention,
Yeah.
they don't care, or maybe they're not with us anymore. To be more,
Holidays,
but you know that. So it's like
That tryptophan got him.
So right now it's like from my point of view, it's like, man, I'm trying to like lock in as much as possible, because like Abby was just saying, I'm still trying to win these little confined leagues. Like,
Yeah.
I still want to be the number one team in this 12 team league.
How many weeks are in a fantasy football season? Average. 17, right?
Yeah.
How many weeks do we have left?
5.
That's like a third of the season we still got left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still got a lot of
A
time left.
third of the
Yeah.
season we
We
still
still got a lot
left.
of time left. So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm not even trying to have that mindset.
Yeah.
Like, I want to stay locked in.
Yeah.
Let's like that Kobe Bryant
Yeah.
gift. Like, job's not
Nothing
finished.
else. Yeah,
Job's
yeah.
not
Yeah.
like there's nothing to be excited about. Nothing to be happy
Ain't
about.
done yet.
Yeah, we're not done yet. So let's finish this up. But with all that being said, I've had a pretty good season. I've taken, and I wish every year I say I'm going to do this, and I never do it, but I wish I took notes on the lessons I've learned going through the season. So then when the next season comes, I kind of go back and try to like be ahead of it. But mentally, I've remembered a lot of issues I've had in the past that I feel like are not going to come back and bite me. Abby was just mentioning, rostering 2 kickers, defenses, quarterbacks, all like that. I'm not rostering 2 kickers. I'm still not there yet with it, but I'm definitely having teams set up with nice defenses where I can, kind of have 2 or 3 defenses I'm comfortable with the rest of the way. I'm always thinking about contingency plans if my quarterback gets hurt.
Yeah.
Of course, if the quarterback doesn't get hurt, that backup quarterback could just burn a roster spot. But like our team last year, we had Jalen Hurts going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
He gets hurt right when the playoffs start, and we really didn't even have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty good team.
That was
there.
a solid
And-
team.
And like I was telling y'all off air, it's like really all we had to do, we didn't have to worry about picking up a quarterback on the waiver wire that we thought was good. All we had to do was pick up our backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So if we would have picked up Jalen Hurts' backup, who at that time was Gardner Minshew, we would have been okay.
Just to hold us over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At least the team be serviceable. So that's kind of my approach right now. Like I said, man, I'm not thinking about any of this as a finality.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we got 5 more weeks.
Yeah.
Even the teams that just are not in it anymore, because they still have the consolation bracket, going some money on that. But I'm looking at what's going on week 17.
Consolation.
I want all the money. All the money. I just found out, you were the one that told me, I just found out if you're the number 1 seed and you have the highest points, you get bonus money.
Yep, you get
I
bonus.
didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Now going forward, I'm going to try to get that too.
So let's go back for a second because we talk about waivers a lot. I think at the beginning of the season, we talk about drafting players. For me, this seems like a very odd season in which I can't remember a number of players that really mattered in waivers unless it was to fill in for a bye. But like outside of Kyron, who I didn't really see being drafted, Puka, maybe Jerome Ford, but really he was being drafted sort of late in drafts. It didn't feel like the waiver sort of had like these like diamonds.
league winner.
Yeah, like these league winners like in years past.
Well, I don't know. Puka's kind of cooled off a little bit lately.
Yeah, but if you had him when he was hot though, like he
I mean,
carried
He propelled you a pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the theme of the season to me, and I felt like this going into the draft, and we talked about like the pie being the same, but there being a lot more smaller pieces or pieces of the pie because there are just a lot more relevant players on each team. And it's also been, a situation where it fluctuates over a period of weeks, which is kind of why we like do the quarters, because we feel like each quarter has its own unique feel to it. Certain players that were hot, to start the first 4 or 5 weeks, then start to cool off. And that's just kind of the general nature of, players in fantasy production. Very few players just dominate the entire way. Those are usually like maybe 2 to 3 players the entire year.
You know what I feel like this season's kind of been?
What?
Because you're right. It hasn't really been anybody pick up the waiver and just kind of been like the person that just leads you to the promised land. I feel like this year, more than any year, has shown how much this game of fantasy is a game of attrition. And I always mention, it's a game of attrition. You got to have that depth. Like, all throughout the season, we've had so many players get hurt. Fantasy players, the guy on your team gets hurt. A lot of times it can just ruin your season. Like, damn, this main guy had, all of a sudden I don't have, like Justin Jefferson teams, like killed their season or something. Jonathan Taylor, if you drafted him, probably killed your season.
Yep.
But I feel like if you built your team with that solid depth, where if one of your main guys go down, you actually have somebody that's replaceable or that can replace them serviceable for you, you can kind of still keep yourself afloat. And I think that's what kind of got me in a position where so many of my teams, I was still competitive regardless of the landscape of how, fantasy
this
players
year,
were injured.
This year more than any, you could have weathered the storm and sustained through having your first round pick, out for a significant period
and
of
your
time.
second round pick being a bust.
Yeah, because they were just, throughout. Go and look at a draft board. Throughout the draft, there were just so many relevant players. The Houston, and there were so many teams that everyone faded, and we made it a point, throughout the offseason to really kind of focus in on these teams. The entire Houston Texans team.
Yeah, we had a whole episode we were talking about this.
Nico, Tank, even for a period of time, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, all these guys have been relevant. Now recently, Devin Singletary, and then obviously, C.J. Stroud, who's somebody you've been able to pick off waivers. And you can just kind of go team by team. Even Adam Thielen for a period of time. There were so many guys who I feel like were going, all the Rams.
Fading the Rams.
All the Rams. So many guys who were going late, who were not just like flex plays, but are actual week in and week out starters who perform and who produce just as much as someone being drafted in the first 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah.
So,
and I say it every season during draft season. I mention this. It's like I always chuckle when players draft their teams and immediately after draft they're like, man, this team is gonna take me to the top. Like this team is stat. This team is, because I always look at it like, bro, you realize like a third of your players are probably gonna get hurt, or something's gonna happen where that team you're looking at right now is not gonna be a team you finish with near the end of the season. So it's kind of like, don't count your chickens before they hatch type thing. But everybody just kind of gets giddy, and I think roster construction, especially in these high stake teams, is extremely important because, again, you can have bad luck any like I was mentioning our Jalen Hurts team last year. If we just construct that team just a little bit better, we would have been fine. So
and that was,
attrition for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of going back to your point as far as roster construction. That's why we were grading drafts and we were asking, does this draft make sense? And for me, like most of my teams this year, and kind of what I wanted to do was really lock in, like we talked about before, in terms of getting 2 elite wide receivers, ideally 3 elite wide receivers if I can get Keenan Allen, and then starting to kind of fill out my roster from there. And when if I started off my draft, kind of with this zero or hybrid 0 RB approach, then I made it a point to make sure that I drafted enough running backs late that could potentially hit.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to beat on a Kyren, because I needed help at running back.
Yeah.
That's why I was able to kind of put all these waiver claims in for Zach Moss, because I needed a running back, because that particular roster construction, I needed to focus in on running back. Same thing with tight end. I faded, we pretty much, I think most of us faded the early and mid round tight ends this year. So for us, tight end was kind of a necessity. So I made it a point to when Trey McBride was absolutely nothing, the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, I made it a point to just have him on teams that were tight end, needy, because they needed it. For that particular team, it made sense to hold on to that player, because that was the one thing that could potentially unlock it. I think we had a team where we were picking up, and I've done it, had a couple teams as well, where you just have Isaiah Likely. For no reason, we just have Isaiah Likely. Because that team needed it. That team needed it, and it takes one injury. I'm doing the same thing with Noah Gray, on teams that really need that sort of kind of push for a tight end, just taking these stabs.
I would recommend all the Kelsey teams to make sure y'all get Noah Gray on your team.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, but
I would just recommend it, because if he's that type of player where if he goes down, it could kill your season.
Yep.
And at least Noah Gray can hopefully fill that same role. If he gives you at least 50% of production, at least maybe that can get you by.
Yeah.
And if once the injury happens, it's probably gonna be too expensive for you to even pick him up at that time. So.
Yeah. So we talked about viewing a fantasy season in quarters. We typically shoot our pods in quarters throughout the season. In the first half of the season, C.J. Stroud wasn't the quarterback that he is now. Now we're seeing him as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. We also see Kyler Murray back now. Kyler being the starting quarterback for Arizona, solid play these last couple weeks. Nothing, to write home about. But still, if you were able to hold on to Kyler, especially right now with, obviously Kirk Cousins being hurt, also Lamar being on a bye, Burrow being hurt.
Josh
a guy
Allen
like Kyler, right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of these guys who are now starting to be a part of your roster, who you kind of stashed or, you kind of kept an eye on. People like a Kyler, people like C.J. Stroud. I often think about Singletary. I kind of held on to Singletary for a while because Dameon Pierce just wasn't giving the Texans that jolt. Do you guys feel good about, starting players like a Singletary, now that it seems like he's won that starting job?
Yeah. For me, I'm actually approaching it kind of, this makes sense, looking at it from the opposing view. So, for instance, take a Devin Singletary. What I'm going to look at is who is his opponent. To me, each week is just its own unique week. And I think, especially as we kind of enter into the tournaments, a lot of our teams that are in the tournaments are there because they have depth and they have good depth. So meaning we have options. And I think start-sit is going to be a very, very important thing to consider and to try and get right throughout the tournament. So I'm really looking at defenses and how they are changing and how they have, adjusted at this current, stage. So, for instance, the Denver defense. Before the Denver defense was one that you could attack.
Yeah.
There was one that you could run on. They were the last in the league because they had that historic run of just letting running backs do whatever. Miami obviously put up, all-time
70.
all-time numbers against them. But what you've seen now is that defense is really locked in. Not only is it locked in, it's been against elite teams that they've done this against. And so going in and just assuming that, okay, this is a decent matchup or this is a viable matchup, or just looking at the rankings could get yourself in trouble. So
the rankings can definitely get you in trouble.
And sometimes these changes are so subtle that you don't realize it until there's been a a string of 2 or 3 games. That's why kind of watching the games is so important. Or that's why just not, putting up, X, Y, and Z team. They were just off today. This is why that defense looked bad. I posed a question about the Vegas defense. Vegas, every time we think about Las Vegas, I'm sure the first thing that kind of comes to mind is, okay, yeah, this is a soft defense. This is a defense where I can start my players against. And just recently, I've been kind of looking at the Las Vegas defense like, they've been okay. They've been all right. They've been formidable. And so I'm wanting to kind of follow the trend of a defense like that to see, is this something that sticks? Does it get better? But Denver defense is one, that, in particular where, like, now I have to be kind of wary about what players I play against that team. So, rather than just kind of looking at a specific player like he's trending up, to me, really it's also important against, who's he going up against.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't got nothing to add to that. I mean, you know what I mean? With matchups, I play it week by week, almost like DFS. These players, you brought up Singletary. I'll be a little bit cautious about Singletary. Just because Pierce is back. These last game, like the 2 games before last game, Singletary was getting like 20-plus carries.
But they seem like a different team with Singletary back then.
I mean, I don't,
Well, Singletary is a better running back to me. I mean, I've always said, I'm saying that this summer.
Yeah.
I thought Singletary, that's why I have so much Singletary now. I felt like Singletary was going to take that job. The issue more so is.
Which I think you said on Wax too, by the way.
The issue I think more so is the offense. I think they're realizing they're more successful if they just commit to being a passing offense, like early, just let C.J. Stroud air it out. I mean, the guy's breaking literally every rookie passing record there is.
They're an explosive team. They have explosive
exactly,
playmakers.
Do what works. I mean, once Slowick figures out that this is what works and this is where our strength is, eventually he'll just lean on that, in my opinion, especially now that we're getting in the playoff race. And then again, just the fact that Pierce is back. This last game that gave, I think Singletary 6 carries and Pierce like 5 carries.
Yeah.
Like combined, that's not even up to 20.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's like, damn. So not only are you not doing that same type of workload, but now you're splitting the workload. Like,
Volume isn't there.
yeah, now he definitely was still getting the receptions because Pierce is not much of a pass catcher. So, he has a floor there, but that ceiling I just don't think is there as much as it used to be. But regardless, I mean, we're at a point in the season where you might not have many other options. I mean, like you said, bye weeks are here. Injuries are still in play. Not to go on too much of a tangent, but the injury that pissed me off the most?
Which one?
The ones where the guy is going to be out for a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you can't drop him?
Yeah, you can't drop. Not the one where he's hurt for the season, but the one where he's like,
i.e. Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, week to week, day to day. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Because you just got him on your bench. You just playing the waiting game. So and that just burns a spot on your roster.
Yeah.
But I got so many players like that right now, man. It's so
Darren Waller for
annoying.
one.
Darren Waller.
Darren Waller,
is what
Aaron
first comes to
Jones.
mind.
Like, what do I do with these guys? Justin Jefferson's finally coming back.
Yeah.
But do you think he's really coming back though? Or
I think he's coming
I
back.
think he's coming back.
think
The
he's coming
problem is, what is he coming back to?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what quarterback? We saw how Josh Dobbs looked.
Yeah.
Now, this is, so I was getting ready to drop.
That was our next question, by the way. Go ahead.
I was getting ready to drop Josh Dobbs across the board, especially with some of the comments that came out, regarding the coach. But, man, I don't know. In the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, they are getting Justin Jefferson back. So now you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson on a team that has struggled to run the ball. And then I go through and look at their matchups. I'm not dropping
Bro, I think he lost
Dobbs.
that job, though.
He may have. But in the off chance that he did not, that's not a quarterback that I want to drop, especially one
you.
that could, because I think, watching that game, and, it was the only game on that night, and as bad as people said it, it was the only game that was on, so I watched the entire thing.
Everybody watched it.
Yeah, everybody watched it, but watching that game, like, the Bears just came out and they just schemed extremely well. Like, to me, they schemed that game extremely well, and Minnesota made no adjustments until it was too late. Until it was like
I think
towards
the
the back of the
concern
game.
that I heard about Dobbs from people was they're afraid he doesn't have that deep ball that Jefferson needs. Because Jefferson's route tree is typically down the field.
Yeah.
Whether it's posts, outs, go routes, things where he's stretching the field. And if you don't have a quarterback that can get him the ball, and they want to utilize their best weapon when he comes back, which is why I think they're even considering the move now. I think before their offense, I mean, they took some deep shots with Addison. The problem with those are deep shots where Addison had to wait for the ball. He was in traffic. You know, he didn't really.
Well, there was
much.
one that he hit him. It was just a little bit out of bounds. But I mean, it's possible. It's just one of those things where like I don't have to necessarily drop him now. I can wait. You know, we can find out because he also runs. You know, he runs and he scores.
He runs a lot.
And when you add Justin Jefferson to an offense, things just magically open up.
Right.
The game just magically gets easier. Defenses, having a spy on Joshua Dobbs now becomes extremely difficult when you're looking across the board from Addison, Justin Jefferson, and T.J. Hockenson. Try to spy that.
Yeah. So one quarterback I have been adding quite a bit of that I mentioned off air, and it's probably stupid as hell, but like I've told myself a story.
Yeah.
Like we always saying, tell yourself a story.
Yeah.
If you can make your story make sense, then go with it. You know? But I've been picking up a lot of Jake Browning. All right.
Yeah.
For a few reasons.
I don't know if I'm wrong.
First of all, I like his weapons. Jamar Chase is still the type of guy where you can throw him a slant, throw him a hitch, he can take it to the house. You know, you can force feed Jamar Chase and he will drag you across to get fantasy points. But on top of that, he has a little bit of running ability. It's like that. It's almost like that Joe Burrow sneaky athleticism to some extent. I don't even know what order I want to say this. I'll say it this way first. He has a little bit of swag to him. Like I heard him do an interview.
What does that matter?
You know that's my thing, man. If you got that confidence, it's like that Deion effect. If you feel good, you play good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I mean, swag is swag adds a little bit to your game.
It's the same reason I was on Trey Palmer. You know, before because that interview I told you Trey Palmer did in Nebraska last year.
Yeah.
So he had that little swag. He was saying comments like, "Man, it kind of sucks. When a team has a quarterback, a quarterback that's in position to just be the starter and nothing the backups can do.
Yeah.
Well, I can win this job type deal if I had the opportunity type. You saying stuff like that. So I thought gave me a little bit of respect for him. But the biggest reason why I got him this week, because he's playing on Monday night.
But Monday night has been kind of disappointing.
No, but he's that Monday night hammer for me. I feel like I really feel like there's something to players playing in prime time.
Dobbs wasn't the hammer.
Justin
Fields wasn't the hammer.
That was trash.
This last week.
But the last week was bad. But a lot of times, like we've all watched these primetime games and people are just going off for whatever reason. And I feel like it's the bright lights.
But typically
you like that hope.
Yeah.
I'm still in it.
Bro,
I'm down 45, so Brian can come out here.
I started Jake Brown. Of course it's hope. Shoot. So
TJ Hawk could always score 50 points. It's like, nah.
Hey, he pulled it off last game.
Man, I don't know. Like, they're broken. Like, in my opinion.
Who? The Bengals?
No.
The Vikings?
The Vikings are broken.
You think they're broken?
I think they're broken.
See, I mean, I don't know. Teams win for, the Vikings were on a winning streak or they were winning games and they lost a game, Things happen. Like, we can't, as soon as something bad happens or as soon as something good happens, like, we cannot expect that trend to just continue indefinitely.
No,
and sometimes we can't expect the trend to continue more than past one game. You really have to just, like, say, okay, this particular game, they lost. They play bad.
But they really shouldn't have won some of those games with Dobbs.
But you got to try.
Like, Dobbs was playing out of his mind.
But so he was playing out of his mind. But you got to ask yourself, why did they lose that specific game? What happened
Dobbs
during that specific games?
Is supposed to play like.
You're saying he's supposed to play like.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
they're going on bye this week, so they have opportunity to fix things.
And the other thing too is like, that's a very important point. Is like they have not had a bye. You know, having a bye, allows you to kind of readjust,
get healthy.
Get healthy. Yeah. But you're adding Justin Jefferson back to the offense. Like I can't stress that enough. Like situations change all the time, and when situations change, I think sometimes we lag a bit as far as making the adjustments in our play. Don't lag when it comes to Justin Jefferson. Whoever that quarterback is, I'm picking up. In that offense, I'm picking up. Because, again, they can't really run the ball.
No, Madison didn't look bad, though. Like, Madison didn't look bad.
They have not been able to run the ball effectively all year. What I'm saying is they're not going to be able to, like, go into a game and just say, you know what, we want to grind. It's going to come via the pass, which means whoever's throwing the ball is going to put up points.
Yeah.
And if that person has a little bit of legs, that's pretty significant. And I got to go back and look at their records, but I feel like their upcoming schedule is fairly favorable. Just something to consider.
Yeah, but sometimes players are who we think that they are.
Yeah.
Like QJ, who I'll never get comfortable saying QJ.
QJ.
I hate that you said QJ in the text. Quentin Johnson.
But people know who QJ is now.
Yeah, but
Ain't no other cues though. But yeah, you're right.
what do you think about QJ? Like, is he ever going to turn into the player that we want him to be?
What do you want? Now, so we were never. I was never on him. But what happened is that he was dropped throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So when players, especially players that I had zero ownership of, when those guys get dropped, I'm going to try to pick them up on the cheap. Mm-hmm. Because to me, that's like the win-win. Like, if he sucks, I can just easily drop him. Mm-hmm. I didn't lose anything. If he balls out, I got him cheaper than anyone else got him and added him to a roster where he could potentially benefit. Mm-hmm. But, kind of getting back to your point, he has had ample opportunity. Multiple guys have gone down, and he just hasn't done it. So he's one guy that I have had no issues in terms of dropping for depth, to add a second defense if need be, to add a backup quarterback if need be. Like he's definitely like
What
the top
defenses
of the list.
are you adding right now? Not to change subject. Well, I guess two change.
You know
subjects.
what?
defense?
There are just a lot of defenses. So a lot of my teams already have like Miami, Dallas. Dallas' schedule, the last 3 weeks isn't the greatest, and I understand that they've just like been, just literally league winners or for the regular season anyway throughout. But I don't want to necessarily rely on that. So usually I'll have a second defense to back up the Cowboys if I feel like I need to start somebody else. So I have a lot of
Browns.
Say what?
You don't know?
I have plenty of Browns. So Browns, okay. I like the Browns. Remaining 3 games to finish the year, but then you're not gonna find them on the waivers. So teams that I see on the waivers that I like are the Saints. The Saints have about a game or two.
ATL Shawty.
Atlanta,
Yes,
they have a couple of good games. Obviously, they got the game for the Jets coming up, but they have some good games down the stretch. Yeah. The Colts, the Texans.
I'm nervous about the
Tampa
Texans,
Bay is Yeah, I like the Texans because they're going up. Ideally, they'll be going up against a rookie quarterback.
But we haven't really showed a consistent pass rush.
Yeah.
And, FFPC, my big thing is I don't even care who the matchup is. Can you get sacks and can you possibly get turnover? That's really all I care about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if the team scores 50 points against you. Can you sack them a few times?
This is why I like the Texans. The Texans play at a fast pace. We just talked about how they want to be a passing team. Mm-hmm. Titans' weakness, they're typically a pass funnel. So if they can get up on the Titans, that will force the Titans to have to throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this last game, I think the Titans only. I don't want to lie.
The Titans were in a positive game script throughout. They were playing the Carolina Panthers, so all they had to do was run the ball. So
I got you.
To me, you get Levis in a situation where he has to throw the ball. Mm-hmm.
Does Levis take a lot of sacks?
He takes sacks. He throws picks. I don't want to say he takes a lot of sacks, but they really don't. They try not to put him in that necessarily position. So it'll have to be a situation where we're up, double digits, which I don't think will be that hard to do. And Derrick Henry has not been the player that he's been in past years. So
did you mention the Saints?
I mentioned the Saints.
I wouldn't. I'm not a big Saints. I don't like their matchups at all. Actually, I think they have one good matchup.
Yeah.
You didn't mention the Rams. I think the Rams are a possibility out there. So the Eagles are interesting because the Eagles haven't really done anything all season long, and they were top 3 defense drafted this year.
Yeah.
But their last 3 games, I think, are pretty solid matchups.
Yeah, they're held in most leagues, but I think if they're available, I mean, depending on your roster and depending on who you have, definitely a team that I've been holding. Anyway.
I mean, these next 2 weeks are not good because I think they're playing
the
Chiefs they're playing the Niners and then the
Dallas.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
So of course those 2 weeks. So fantasy for the FFPC players, fantasy playoff weeks are not that great, but the tournament they might be a player.
Yeah, but I think to me the main thing is I was kind of going through waivers this week is that there are a lot of defenses available. Mm-hmm. You don't need to break the bank. You don't need to necessarily go all in on one defense. There are a lot of options out there, and we still have one more waiver run.
The Bucs aside, okay.
Yeah, we still have one more waiver run. So, I doubt teams are going to be trying to hoard 4 or 5
real
defenses.
quick, so that's a good point. Let's talk slightly strategy, right? So, say you're a team that didn't make the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. Again, if you want to consider consolation bracket, or if you're one of the teams that you didn't make the playoffs but you're still going to get in the tournament, you got to worry about picking up these teams and defenses and all that stuff before the playoffs start. Because once the playoffs start at FFPC, you're locked out of picking anybody up.
Yeah.
So
cock block.
Yeah. I mean, I can go on a whole tangent with that. I don't think that's fair, to be honest with you, bro.
What?
I don't think it's fair that only the teams in the playoffs can
Why?
add and drop.
You're not.
If you're a team, like I said, if you're a team that can make the tournament,
You can't make the tournament if you didn't make the playoffs.
yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. You have to be top, whatever percentage, but you can make the playoffs without
That's extraordinarily rare.
it. I had a team like that. I've had a few teams like that.
Wait. Like, how do you make the playoffs?
If
You
you
have to be
there's
like-
a certain cutoff point.
Like
where
if you, I
you're
think
in
if
the
you're top 10 points of the overall tournament.
not top 10. It's like top the top 1,500 or top 2,000.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah, it is, man.
It's not
I can
top
look it
2,000.
up. I can look it up.
It's not top 2,000.
It is, bro. It is.
Then I need
But
to
how
go
do
back
you
and check
become
a
the
look,
top
'cause
2,000 and not get inside
Taking
your
L's.
league?
Just taking losses.
It's
Yeah, but-
it's a points. It's a point.
Yeah, it's by points.
It's by points, but
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
you
it's
should have
not
been-
It's not top 2,000.
It's
I'm gonna look this up right now.
No,
And
no,
you're
wait,
not
I'll
top
look it
2
up.
in your own league, so that
I'll look
means
it- I
that
know where it's at.
2 teams
Okay,
in your
yeah.
league is also top 2,000 as well.
Yes. I've had it happen. I mean, there's one team I had last year that got into the playoffs that was like only won 2 games.
Man, that's crazy.
I mean, it just be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't like how it locks people out.
yeah.
That's all.
Do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't have to
better.
deal with it too much, but I just, that bothers me sometimes. So,
Oh man.
See if you can find it there.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, a lot of strategy. I think one of the biggest things is like there's going to be a lot of like teams in the tournament. Because typically the players that did the best are the ones that propelled your team to making the playoffs and making the tournament.
And going back to what we said about
Yeah.
like lack of waiver wire pickups,
Yeah.
that means that everybody
Everything is locked. So at
Yeah.
some point you got to differentiate yourself. You're not going to be able to differentiate yourself if Stephon Diggs is the one who goes on a ridiculous and historic 3-week run, because everybody's going to be starting Stephon Diggs. There's going to be a lot of players that are going to be starting. So decisions I think are going to be important. Sometimes you may, people talk about upside. Literally, I'm playing the guy who I think is going to score the most points. That's what upside is to me. So if it happens to be a guy that's going to be 90% started, then that'll be the guy that I go with. And then towards that, if I'm really far down, then that's when, okay, now I need to go against the grain. If
Right.
everybody's starting X, Y, and Z player, maybe I need to sit him and start a guy who is not being started, across the majority of the format, so that I can try and gain ground. We talked about kickers.
But let's talk about kickers a little
yeah.
bit more. So, are you truly? So you won without actually having a kicker, which
Yeah.
is crazy. But like,
You don't need them now.
but let's talk about kickers for a second. Like, is it crazy to roster? Like, why roster 2 kickers? Like, kickers very rarely get hurt, but I mean,
Well, you say that, but kickers have gotten hurt. The Texas
Yeah.
kickers got hurt. Now we're seeing that the New Orleans Saints kicker pulled up with a groin, and they brought in some kickers for tryouts. Will Lutz has a questionable tag. So kickers do get hurt. It's it's a roll of the dice essentially. You got to ask yourself, do I want to burn a roster spot on a kicker? I find that hard to do. I find it extremely, extremely hard to do. I mean, I got to be looking at the waiver wire and just seeing absolutely nothing. Like all these guys are 3-4 injury removed from being anything relevant. And then even still in that situation, that may be some way that you can differentiate yourself because you're rostering someone that most people won't roster. We're seeing Trey Sermon now becoming rosterable.
that's
So
crazy.
it's just going to be hard to like find and lock up a roster spot with 2 kickers. So I think what I'm going to do
it?
No, I won't do it.
You gonna do it?
yeah.
2 kickers?
I think what I'm going to do is
I'm just trying to think out. I'm sorry, not to cut you
Yeah.
off. I get to cut you off, but what would be an instance where you would need that second kicker? Is it only injury? Because remember, back last 2 years we were concerned about COVID.
Also matchups too. So
play ma-
So you're playing matchups with your kickers?
yeah.
But look,
You
this
feel
is-
like you can wait? Y'all feel like y'all can predict through
I
matchups
told
with
you
your
my
kickers?
strategy.
now I feel like I can do anything and predict anything.
Anything.
What type of question is that?
All right, hey,
You ask the
okay.
question, you know the answer to.
Y'all
it.
gotta teach me
But
something then.
No, but I mean, like, just go through and like look at the kickers. There are weeks when certain kickers put up like 20 points. Like last week, I felt like Groupie, based on like the matchup, based on Derek Carr not being someone who can, really capitalize. He's never historically been someone who can capitalize in the red zone. But then you go up against the right matchup or the right team
Right,
where
like-
it's a soft offense. That means you're in the red zone.
actually like better defenses. Right, like defenses that tighten up
That
in the
can
red
stop
zone.
your guy from-
yeah, like
Yeah.
I like a good offense versus a good defense.
But yeah,
Like-
and I'm also like looking at the landscape. Like everybody is going to
non-accurate
roster
quarterbacks.
kickers on like these elite offenses.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at their game logs, it's not like they're really doing anything special.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to fade all of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop all my Buckners. I'm going to drop, who are the other elite kickers in the league?
Tucker.
Tucker. You know, I had Tucker. I loved having Tucker because I just never had to
tell
like
you
do ad
burned
drops.
me, though. I tell you
I'm,
burned me.
I'm dropping all my Tuckers and I'm not really picking them up. And I'm going to roster kickers that I think most of the tournament.
My bad. It's 2%,
players.
so it's 400 teams.
Yeah.
The top 400.
Yeah. And so I'm going to roster. Kickers. Yeah, significant. I'm going to roster kickers that I think most players in the tournament won't be rostering, because all you really need is that 1 week like Groupie had last week where he's putting up 20 plus points.
Yeah.
And I think there's some kickers out there that could potentially do it based on the matchup, based on the
you think-
But
offense.
that's what I thought Prater was going to be, and then he burned me.
Man,
Yeah,
Prater.
burned me.
Do y'all think that come week, let's say week 16, 15, there's going to be a lot of like duplicate teams at the top of the leaderboard?
I don't know.
That's exactly what I was saying. I really do believe that, because
This year, I'm saying this year with all the
Yes.
type of differentiate type rosters and everything.
I think so, because I think when it comes down to it, I think when people get in the tournament, especially that first week, what's going to happen?
Because I only feel the only way I feel like that's possible if people are picking up similar type of players through waivers. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think there's a lot of teams that have the same type of roster they had when they drafted their teams. So for you to have a duplicate team, it's literally you have to draft similar to another team and also pick up players similar to another thing. And I think that could be really.
But we talked about
rare.
it. Like how many players were picked up through waivers?
I mean, not a lot, but still, like okay, like a Zach Moss, right? The tight ends, right? You're like there's
Yeah.
tight ends that were dropped. Like Juwan
Yeah.
Johnson's now picked back up. You know,
Yeah.
McBride was not even being drafted.
Yeah.
You know, players like that. Where now that we're in these championship rounds, these are going to be guys that people are going to have in their lineups.
Do you think these championship teams though like really differ at the tight end position? Like I feel like we're gonna see a handful of like.
You
I
feel like one
that
tight
was
end's going to go off. He's going to make everybody kind of raise in the leaderboard.
Right. Like I feel like that's the thing that kind of propelled you this
Man,
season.
if you were a TJ Hawkinson owner, like
Yeah.
you got two things that are like could really hurt you. One, Joshua Dobbs no longer being quarterback because that dude loves the tight ends. And two, Justin Jefferson coming back into the offense and like bogarting these targets now. So, you know,
You think he's going to take a nosedive in production?
who?
Hawkinson?
I don't want to say nosedive, but I think, you know, he's not going to be what he's been.
So who is the
today.
tight end that
This is
is
the
it
thing.
just Kelsey right now?
But this is the thing. If you drafted Kelsey, you don't have Tyreek. So to me, like, whoever goes off in that first, couple of rounds, like, there's gonna be like one player in that first round that's just gonna like put up like, let's say 80 points over the course of 3 weeks.
Oh, y'all are right.
So you can't, like, if you drafted Kelsey, you don't have Tyreek Hill, you don't have CMC, you don't have Stephon Diggs,
But you got but you got Travis Kelsey.
but you got Travis Kelsey. What I'm saying is, like, Travis Kelsey can do what Travis Kelsey does, but he still needs to outscore all of those other players.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You know?
Some top 5 teams. By the way, some guy named Beretta James has the number 2 and 3 team on the leaderboard.
Killing.
Wow.
He is killing. But team number 1 tight end is Kittle. Team number 2 tight end right now is Hunter Henry, but he could have. I mean, it could be.
Henry. God.
But it could be a bye week, like
Yeah, he's
feeling.
probably got bye weeks.
Oh, you can't see the bench? I
No.
got you.
Evan Ingram is the tight end for his third team.
He's had a pretty solid season.
And I'm sure, and I'm guessing a lot of these teams got Mostert on them as well.
Yeah,
So
Dallas.
that's the other thing too. Is like,
Yeah.
Mostert now with Devin A-Chain coming back. Do you continue to
And
like
Jeff
Mostert got to make it 5 weeks now. These next 2 weeks don't really matter all that much, but
But you're right. All 5 of the top teams have
And
Mostert
Mostert.
starting.
and so that's where kind of like I don't even look at the leaderboard. I don't
I
to
don't
me,
either.
like it makes
It's
zero. It
interesting,
makes
though. I mean, that's interesting because that tells me that if Mostert doesn't hit,
A lot of teams.
those are all going to fall back.
Yeah.
Because, they can't take him out the lineup. If there's no injury, you have to put most. It's almost the way we were feeling about
Yeah.
Gus Edwards last week.
Yeah.
Like even though we were like, we don't really like it, but we got to put him in because he's been on a tear, right? They might have that same problem with Mostert because you're right. A-Chain's coming back. Jeff Wilson actually got a lot of playing time last week.
Yeah.
Mostert, if he didn't score those touchdowns in the second half, his
And that was like
output wouldn't
loaded
look
box,
great.
like team just kind of giving up a little bit. He
Yeah.
had like, the seas just parted, and it was just like a,
Does Mostert get a lot of passing work, or is it
not a
just
lot.
strictly
Just,
on the
but
ground?
he'll get a little bit, but not a lot, not necessarily.
He
a
has
lot.
to revert to the mean to some point, then, right?
And Mostert seems to be the guy that is in all of these
the
lineups.
ones
Like
at the
he's
top.
the,
That's interesting.
he's the guy that's kind of locked in. And that tight end position is kind of all over the place. But we do know that this is a week in which,
It's only two big tight ends that are out: Kincaid and Hawkinson.
yeah, but they're out. Baltimore, Mark
Yeah, but
Andrews.
he's gone.
is-
Like he's.
I know, but
not
like what I'm
coming
saying
back.
is like he could have been like their tight end
Yeah.
initially, and then
Championship
yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, so
bad.
no, man, like it's all over. the place.
Should have got Brevin Jordan
Yeah,
with Dalton Schultz with the hamstring.
yeah,
Go
man.
bad.
But yeah, like tight ends are all over the place. But Mostert is the one constant of all these top teams.
That makes me feel good though,
Yeah.
It does.
because I mean, if Mostert goes off, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it also tells me Mostert doesn't go off, all those things are gonna fall.
Yeah, and fall hard. Fall hard. Speaking of falling hard, I want to go back to the Chargers again. We know Keenan Allen has turned back the dial a bit. Who's going to be the second receiver? Like, we can't just leave it up to Keenan Allen as the only receiver in that offense.
Yeah.
Who's the second receiver that,
I've
that
been
you can
snatching
see?
up some Josh Palmer whenever I've seen him on waivers.
I've been holding him for a long time. I don't know if he's going to play again this season, but for like literally the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've added him every single place that I could because there is a huge void there. If he doesn't come back, then I think it's just going to be a combination of a lot of 2s and 3s from the wide receiver standpoint. I think Gerald Everett, is there. Darnell Parham is someone like some tight end just
Man,
needy teams.
You can't trust. I don't even think he did anything last week.
No, so you cannot play him when Gerald Everett is healthy. But when Gerald Everett is not healthy, to me, like again, like in this particular situation where they are missing pass weapons, Eckler is
But
kind of
you're
a shell of
gonna hold
himself.
him on your roster now with 5 weeks left, hoping Everett gets hurt again. Because that's basically what you're doing.
Only on the teams where there is literally nothing on the waiver wires. Where
Brevin Jordan on the waiver wire.
Come on.
yeah, and he might be, but like I need to see that Schultz is likely, significantly out.
I mean, just the Texans with hamstrings. Remember, Noah Brown had a hamstring, and they kept him out 2 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you go look at the game log, this last Texans game, the fourth quarter, Schultz barely played.
And
Brevin
this is
Jordan played and got a lot of work. So
Yeah.
But this is what makes it so hard. This is where, from a strategy standpoint, it's like multi-layered. It's like I don't care about the next 2 weeks.
you care about the overall.
I care about so Schultz may have an injury right now, but is that injury going to keep him out 3 weeks?
That's the question.
Whereas Everett is healthy right now, and you could make the same argument for Brevin Jordan, just hold him, hoping that Schultz get hurt, or name backup tight end. I just see a void in that Chargers offense, and I know that the tight ends get used in the red zone.
Yeah.
So for me, like again, on like teams where I'm just like struggling to tight end, and I just need potential, and he's a potential differentiator. If Everett goes down, and he's happened to be on one of my teams in the tournament, he's someone that may be able to provide significant value.
Tight end is tough this week, man.
So, like, here's a hypothetical. You have one roster spot, and you have to choose between Greg Dortch or Rondale Moore.
Dortch.
Who are you picking?
Dortch. Next question. I'm going to answer for Abby. Dortch.
Dortch?
What's your next question?
Dortch.
Dortch.
Is that easy?
Easily.
Dortch, yeah.
Easily.
Why?
Because he can play multiple positions.
he's still on the outside right now?
Michael Wilson's out, he can play that. If Marquise Brown goes out, he can play that.
He's
if
done it
Rondale
before.
Moore goes out, he can play that.
He did it last year.
If all those other guys go out, Rondale Moore
had a
Did it last year with
had like a
Kyler.
good stretch.
Yeah, Rondale Moore is playing Rondale
No,
Moore's
but
position.
Dortch was playing a type of position where he was getting fed targets. Where he's playing like the main receiver for that team. Rondale Moore has these gimmick plays where, he'll have a deep bomb like he did against the Texans, probably take some sweeps. Probably one of those plays you get the ball to him in space and let him make
Can't
it
count on
happen.
him, man.
Dortch is running real routes
Yeah.
Yeah.
where he's like Kyler's first read. And, you know, with Hollywood hurt, Michael Wilson, I don't even know what's going on with Michael Wilson.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've seen him do it. He has that slight rapport with them. And, I mean, if you really want to take it to my dynasty roots, Dortch is one of those spark score, you know, or Raz score, like super athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was small, but the type of production, a very young breakout age, it's one of those things where I think he was drafted by the Jets. They just didn't give him much opportunity.
Yeah.
He became like one of those journeymen for like a hot second, found a position of the Cards. And we've seen him when he has that opportunity produce.
I played him a lot last week.
You know, so yeah, definitely. I'm even if Hollywood is playing this week, man, I wouldn't be afraid to put Dortch in my lineup if I was in a pinch.
Yeah.
I'm not touching Rondell.
I won't talk about the Giants, although Isaiah Hodgins scored a touchdown last
did.
week.
Finally.
Finally.
Yeah, on the week where we recording our next show.
Right.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Let's completely just pass on the Giants. I mean, nobody is really startable.
Bro, if we did
No, you can't.
Barkley at this point.
You can't pass. You can't just completely. No.
Who are you starting
Yes,
from
you
the
can.
Giants
So
offense?
again,
Take Barkley out.
I'm gonna keep going back to this. You cannot take what you've seen. I don't care if you've had 5 weeks of just the Giants sucking. You have to erase that. You have to approach each week individually. They started off just absolutely just terrible, just trash, just like abysmal. Okay, and then what has happened over the last few weeks? DeVito has like been
DeVito has little life in him.
somewhat
he has
little
little life
viable.
in that arm,
And
yeah.
what that's led to is like what we saw last game was whoever the X or the outside receiver.
Hyatt.
First it was
Hyatt.
Slayton, and then we saw like Hyatt. And who is Hyatt?
Slayton went to the game
Slayton's
hurt though.
Yeah.
So Slayton it might really be Slayton,
But
honestly.
what is Hyatt from what is Hyatt from a draft capital standpoint?
Third round pick.
Third round?
Third round.
I thought didn't he go a little bit higher than third round?
No. Third, maybe even fourth. I think it was third round though.
We gotta look
Chris,
that
you
up.
can look it up.
Yeah.
But he
Gotta
was
look that
being
up.
talked initially about maybe being a first round pick because he has that certain skill set. He
Yeah.
has those burners.
So to me, it looks like they're trying to incorporate him a little bit more in offense. So
Oh, yeah,
you know,
definitely.
So Jalen Hyatt is one that I would just kind of just like keep
And
an
you
eye
know, we're
on.
always talking about the fact that when the season's starting to come to a close and these teams that don't look like they're going anywhere,
Yeah.
they start to try to play their young talent.
Yeah.
You know, see what they got.
And
Third round pick, by the way.
third round
Third
pick.
round,
Okay, and then but the reason I bring that up is like if the offense now has life, that opens things up for everyone. Potentially for
Except for
Saquon,
Bellinger. Drop Bellinger. He's wrong.
But,
Keep holding on to it, too.
basically, if Waller comes back, to me, having an offense that can support Barkley, that can support Hyatt, now you add in a Waller. Now, to me, that makes things easier for Waller.
But
So
the
he's
people want to
somebody that
know
hurt
what
me.
you feel about Wan'Dale Robinson. That's really what.
Oh, he's cut. You drop it. Drop him. Drop him. Drop him. You can drop that bum.
What happened?
Drop that bum. He was good for a period of time. He was serviceable. Now he's droppable.
Yeah,
you know?
time is
Yeah,
God,
time is
please.
fast.
Nice run.
Speaking of, we should check. Speaking of bum fight, which
By the way,
yeah,
going on that, bro, we could do a whole episode of the type of players we were like talking up, hyping, arguing
Yeah.
about this summer. That ain't been shit.
bum fights.
That's
Bum
been
fights.
horrible.
man.
Like we don't even want to talk about them anymore.
Yeah, no,
You're about to talk about Gallup and Cooks.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Gallup is
Gallup and Cooks.
another bum.
Yeah.
Cook's been coming on though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cook's been coming on.
Yeah.
But Gallup was free though. Gallup was free.
Yeah, all right. Well, those
my
wings
thing-
are gonna be free because you owe me $50 if this holds out.
Yeah, but my whole thing was like, why am I spending a 6th, 7th round pick on Gallup, or not 6th, but 7th or 8th round pick on Gallup?
That wasn't the bet.
I know it wasn't bad. What I'm saying, but this is my point though. Why am I spending a 7th, 8th round pick on Brandon Cooks when Gallup is going like 15th, 16th, 17th round? Because if I spend,
There's not that much of a difference.
it's not that much of a
Right.
difference. But this
I
is
got you.
but this is the point though. Irrespective of those two. If you took Brandon Cooks, that means you didn't take someone like a Michael Pittman. That means you didn't take a Michael Evans. That means you didn't take all those wide receivers or running backs that went in that range. Kamara at the time, even Javonte Williams was going down there at the time. You didn't take any of those guys. Instead, you took Brandon Cooks. So that was my whole thing. Was like, why reach for them?
Yeah.
You know, I felt like one of them was going to be serviceable because I felt like this offense was going to go through Dak or go through the pass. But I just didn't want to, necessarily dedicate that much draft
Hey, let me ask you a
capital to
question.
them.
Hold on. I'm looking at this draft that I think this is our joint draft. He went, 9-1?
Okay, so there he went a little bit later.
All right. And I'm looking at the receivers around now, but you could have gotten Zay Flowers, but Michael Thomas, bum.
Zay Flowers hasn't had that
But-
great of a season.
Look at all the
Bateman?
players that went after him.
QJ,
Kincaid,
Scott Moore.
A-Chain.
No, like it's the running backs.
Y'all
that
bringing
you
up rookies that people weren't really sure about. You know?
right.
And
Herbert,
rookies,
Herbert went after him, though.
Rookies, one of those things where people, you either have to be into rookies or you have to be one of those people that I got to see it first.
Yeah, Dobbs.
Which is why I'm always saying rookies are the
Sutton,
cheapest they're ever
yeah.
going to be.
Yeah. I mean, with this hindsight, you know,
Yeah,
like, I'm not
Let
necessarily.
me ask y'all a
saying-
question. What are we doing with Keith Mitchell? Is he now
Oh, he's droppable to me.
droppable?
How's he droppable?
He's droppable. I'm never gonna feel comfortable playing him.
That was gonna be my question, like, when are we
even if
playing?
Gus got hurt, I still think that Justice Hill is gonna
That's,
get those.
but this is my thing. This
Hey,
is
if
my
Gus
still-
got hurt, man, he might be the starter of the
my
week.
thing. This is my
I'm just
thing.
saying.
No,
I
He
think-
might be the starter.
when you look at the player, like you almost just have to like look at the player, like, and then understand that like his situation can change. So like if
every,
you put, so,
every player situation.
but
can
no,
change.
he's not every player though, and he's not in every single offense. If his situation changes where a running back gets hurt, that's not that uncommon. Gus Edwards gets hurt, that he is going to eat.
No, he's not. Justice Hill,
All right.
come on down. Justice Hill is gonna get all
I'll
the
put it
goal
this way.
line
I'll put
work.
it this way. If Gus Edwards got hurt, I guarantee that Keaton Mitchell would be a top 10, top 15 running back in 95% of fantasy football rankings across the board.
Well, that doesn't mean that he's actually going to produce to the
Rankings is
rankings.
more about perception.
But what I'm saying is perception. But what I'm saying is that the vast majority of people would agree that, given his situation changed, he is significantly of more value now.
Okay, so
Sure, but I just don't think that he's ever going to produce the way that a starting running back, at least in my lineup, is going to produce. I want my starting running backs to get goal line work. And Keaton Mitchell isn't going to get that as long as Gus Edwards and Justice Hill is still in that backfield.
But to me, he's not that much different than A-Chain. You know, A-Chain's a better player.
I think they're very similar. Actually.
Yeah.
But he is like his situation and that player are really not that much different. So if you're going to drop Keaton Mitchell, then you might as well drop Devon A-Chain.
Don't drop
Devon A-Chain is not going
not
to
drop
be
A-Chain.
break. Of course not.
That's the best
But
running
this
back
is
in
what I'm
the
trying to
NFL
like, you know. But these 70, 80, 60-yard, 50-yard TD runs, you know, scoring 30, 40 points a game. Like
He kind of
you know,
has a little bit of CJ Spiller to him.
You know,
Back in the day when CJ Spiller had those few little runs, but take it to the house.
Yeah.
Like change the whole landscape of your
I can't
fantasy
bank on
matchup.
But what we saw last week was Keaton Mitchell get the first snap of the game. Keaton Mitchell get the majority of the carries. Keaton Mitchell get some looks in the passing game. There were plenty of times where Lamar literally could have just dumped it down to Keaton Mitchell, and I think he started doing that a little bit towards the end of the game. But like to me, like he has significant value and significant upside. I would not be dropping Keaton Mitchell.
Remember what y'all discussed this summer that I've always thought about? Remember when Chris was saying James Cook is in the same tier as Tony Pollard? He might have been right.
Yeah. That tier 2 is really wide, ain't it?
He might have been
Right now, like if we're looking at that tier 2 of running backs,
He might have been right.
it's really wide.
I'm a little concerned with Pollard, man.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying with.
Long term too.
That's what we were saying with James Cook though. When we brought that up,
I don't feel comfortable about starting James Cook now.
But that's
Like,
we were putting them. Basically, we were. My thing was like, there's not much difference between James Cook and Gibbs. As far as like the two. Now, if you look at James Cook's recent games with the change in the offensive coordinator, again, I think that James Cook still has league-winning potential because I feel like this new offensive coordinator wants to minimize turnovers and wants Josh Allen to take the easy throws. He wants him to take the easy reads, the easy options.
But Josh Allen
and he also
has to
wants to
wanna
get.
take-
Yeah, Josh Allen.
He has been. The running backs have seen an increase in uptick in targets, and there've also been design targets as well. He dropped it, but there was a wheel route where James Cook could have had a walk-in touchdown against Philadelphia.
You concerned at all with Ty Johnson taking some of that work?
It's less than ideal, but again, when I'm talking about these guys, we have very few running back situations where one guy is just getting all the work. Right. So to me, again, what's the difference between James Cook, Devon A-Chain, Keaton Mitchell? They're all kind of the same thing. Getting back to your Tony Pollard point, I think Tony Pollard though, like he's back. I think if
he's back?
I think he's back. I think if you are going into the tournament, and I have a couple tournament teams with Tony Pollard, you could be set up for success.
What makes you think that? Like,
Yeah, what?
Because now look. this is going to go back to that quarters discussion. What have teams seen playing the Dallas Cowboys now for like the last few weeks? They seen just Dak just shred them. They seen the receivers just destroy them. They seen Tony Pollard be middling. So if I'm a defensive coordinator going into these matchups, am I thinking, guys, we got to stop Tony Pollard? Guys, we got to stop Tony Pollard. No, I think this is why things change over a period of time. Because defenses aren't just going to go into a game and not game plan against something that's just been working for like the last month and a half. Also, like just watching Tony Pollard play over the last few games, he just looks better. Remember, he came into the season injured. And it's something that like never really got talked about because people just said he was ready. And I think, like, to me, he looks more explosive. He looks a little bit better.
You haven't mentioned Dowdle at all.
He looks like Rico Dowdle. That's what he looks like.
Being a better running back.
How many situations do we find ourselves
No,
in?
I'm not saying him sharing the law. I'm just saying Dowdle just looking better. Probably getting more goal line work type thing.
Last game, I don't think he looked better. I
thought he looked just like Pollard.
I thought he looked pretty good, actually.
Yeah, they took their jersey numbers off.
He looked good.
I think
that was probably like number one and number two on handcuffs.
We always talked about how if the Cowboys gave Pollard these Zeke touches, then they would be a lot more like successful running the ball.
That's not what I said. I said the exact opposite. Because we had the Zeke Pollard debate.
Not you. Yeah, I know how you feel, but most people felt like Zeke was in the way of Pollard reaching his maximum potential. I think now it's switched to now Pollard's in Dowdle's way. If Dowdle was the starting running back of the Cowboys, I think he would be like a very valuable fantasy asset.
Yeah, because there would only be one.
Right. I mean, even if you're right. If they brought somebody else.
Yeah, if Dowdle was out, say Dowdle got injured.
Okay,
I think Tony Pollard's value would increase more than the vice versa.
If Dowdle was a starter and Pollard was the backup, I think Dowdle would be a pretty damn good fantasy player. Maybe more valuable than what Pollard is now.
Yeah. I felt that halfway through the season and up until recently, but over the last few games, to me, Tony Pollard looks like he might be back.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks like he might be back.
I just think Pollard has certain skill set in him that Pollard doesn't have.
And I think we're also used to Pollard just looking just dominant on the touches that he has. And so because he's not ripping off these 20, 30-yard plus runs, but if you watch him, he's ripping off like 5, 7-yard runs, 10-yard runs. He's just also not really being, used in the passing game as well. So to me, like that's kind of hurting him. But that's something again, like if defensive coordinators start kind of taking the approach, like we're not going to let these wide receivers beat us anymore, and they start allowing these dump offs to the flat, because it may take one game where like Dak just like comes back down to earth because there was, a defense schemed 2 high safeties, they basically took away the wide receivers and he just refused to couldn't make the adjustments in game to, drop it down to Tony Pollard. So it's just a bad game across the board for everybody. And in the following game, he goes back and watches the tape and the offensive coordinator sitting there like, look, they took this away, they took this away, they took this away, but they gave us the flat. So it may be that like second follow-up game where we see Tony Pollard catch a couple passes. This is literally how I'm like.
Well, this last game, he had 6 catches, 24 yards. So I mean,
not very productive, but that's still 6 targets. That's valuable.
I mean, they were playing the Redskins, or sorry, the Commanders.
Yeah, so we got to throw that out.
Yeah, horrible.
All right, guys, that's our episode this week.
Okay,
it felt good to be back.
Yeah,
it did feel good to be back.
So, Dynasty people, right? Especially if you're in Superflex. We're talking about it off air as well. Might be a time to pick up Malik Cunningham right now.
Boy, so you serious about this?
Yeah, if he gets that job, the Patriots don't know what they're doing at the quarterback.
They don't.
Like they're not it ain't even just they're not happy or comfortable with Mac Jones. They've shown they're not comfortable with Zappe being the guy either.
Yeah.
They're giving him opportunity, but they're not just fully backing him as far as being the new guy. And let you know, I mean, there's opportunity there. That Malik Cunningham, somebody can get for like $1. Also, with the news, with the Packers backfield, don't sleep on Patrick Taylor.
Yeah.
As an option. Because not only is he the next man up, but he also is their passing down back. So you are at least going to get those receptions for PPR type games.
All right, guys, that's our episode this week. Please like, rate, subscribe.